Salutations, my kindred souls. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for clicking, pressing play. I hope this message intrigues you, resonates with you, and spurs you onward down your journey. My name is Lux, and I love talking about wisdom, healing, and integration and how it is powerfully changing my life as well as how it can change yours. Today, I want to talk about a true cornerstone topic of all that is me, all that is Lux Martin Integration coaching, and really break down this topic or this message of what is true emotional and spiritual maturity, why it's important, what it really is and what it really isn't, because I'm absolutely truly integrating this in real time right now on some pretty nuanced layers on what maturity is and what it isn't, and what it gets to look like and what it doesn't have to look like. And if there was any one thing I would truly implore my audience to pursue, to consider, to perhaps give some serious thought and effort to, it would be to understand the importance of how spiritual and emotional maturity and pursuing that and truly integrating that in your life makes profound depth, impact, and change in your life, and as well as the lives around you that you influence. It is my true call to action. It is my true ask of my audience is that you reflect on what is maturity to you, and then beg the question of how much deeper can I go? Because I would absolutely say I've seen me do it in the fact that before my spiritual journey began, I thought I was a very responsible, mature human being. And in the 3D practical ways, I was for the most part. But what I started to realize is that that was truly the tip of the iceberg. And as challenging as embodying emotional and spiritual maturity may be, it has brought a level of self-satisfaction and self-love and self-appreciation that I didn't know could be accessed until I understood the depth of the work that is required to reach deeper. And I'm not saying this in terms of like one is holier than thou art, in terms of like someone being more mature than another person spiritually or emotionally, because the beauty of it is each and every soul on this earth gets to choose to what degree they want to embody those things. And all of that gets to be okay. Not one is better than the other, because we all came here for certain reasons, yeah? And so I'm just pretty passionate about the fact that embodying, pursuing, exploring, getting real knee-deep in the trenches with all that emotional and spiritual maturity is and isn't is a passion of mine. It's a purpose of mine. And I think it's important to talk about it, because as I go down this journey, we start to realize how messy it actually is. The first point I want to make here being that maturity isn't perfection nor suppression. And those are both guardrails I've seen me bump into along this journey. And I don't know if enough people really talk about what it's like to hit those guardrails and then try to steer back to the middle of the road, because a lot of the content we take in, or a lot of the stars or the influencers or the mentors we look up to, seemingly look like they have it all together. They're very profound, they're mature, their delivery is intriguing, and we think, myself included, I look at and listen to those people and think, wow, like I wish I could handle myself like that. And in actuality, today's recording day included, I've come to realize that that's just not always reality, and that maturity is not perfection. A person that is absolutely, whether they seem to be or not, a person that is authentically, emotionally, and spiritually mature has messy days, has times where they bump into the guardrails, has times where they don't execute flawlessly. Which, doggone it, that this human carcass experience has this thing called humanity and imperfection, because if I could do without it, I sure would. But again, that's kind of why I need to talk to it, because I feel like I hope I speak to an audience that is similar to me in that we pursue, we strive, we want to achieve, we want to learn, we want to grow. And in that growing comes this continual battle or acceptance of the duality of ego, in that, man, I wish I could get it right. I wish I could get it right all the time. I wish I could not make mistakes. I wish I could not feel like I'm going backwards. I wish I could not feel like it's messy, or that it gets to keep getting easier. And at some point, I think I've started to realize on this journey that It doesn't always feel like I don't think it's going to ever really feel like it gets easier. I think you just keep learning how to expand and grow into new levels of expansion and depths and new edges of you. And so I think it's kind of be hard for the majority of the time. And that irritates the snot out of me, y'all. So if that really bothers you too, feeling like you're always just one step behind, or like you're always just a half a step away from hitting a stride where it should be smooth and easy and you should make it look easy, I don't know if that's actually the best way to do it all the time, because that means you've become stagnant if it gets too easy or if it starts to feel super duper smooth. So I'm trying to look at the struggle as a blessing, and I'm hoping that that's not ignorance or bypassing, that's true maturity. To me, maturity is radical acceptance of what is and what isn't. And especially in the spiritual and emotional realms, radical acceptance. So I want to give you some key topics of where I think spiritual and emotional maturity lies, or the cornerstones of those topics that help you start to pursue embodiment of what that is, which would be taking responsibility. And we can say that in the vaguest of terms, the most practical of terms, as well as the most theoretical, quantum, emotional terms. Taking responsibility for literally everything that is all of you, from your human carcass to your human life responsibilities, to the wounds within, the cosmic DNA inside of you that is teaching you, growing you, guiding you, all of these things. And then the other side of that very close coin is releasing what isn't yours. So to me, a very important part of my spiritual journey was taking radical responsibility for what is mine and taking radical release of what is not mine to carry. I used to be a person, especially as an empathic person, that carried a lot of stuff that wasn't mine, whether that was duties, obligations, emotions, responsibilities. And part of true maturity is letting that go. I bet you can think of somebody in your life that you find it interesting that they find that taking on all these extra habits, or believing that being a good parent is doing this, that, and the other, when, actually in your house, you really could care less about it. Or the things that you expect out of someone in a relationship are really things that you don't need to carry. And yet some people carry that backpack, carry that weight in the name of, look at how responsible I am, look at how mature I am for taking on this extra weight. And in actuality, part of the journey is understanding that that's not maturity. That's suppressing or bypassing or avoiding addressing a wound, in which case you would have to peel it back and expose it for what it really is. And that's hard, and that requires bravery. And that, looking that in the face, is maturity, is responsibility. So I bet you, like I said, you can think of people that unnecessarily take on things in the name of responsibility or maturity, when in actuality what you see is them avoiding a deeper issue. So taking responsibility for what is yours, releasing what is not yours, recognizing patterns, whether that's in life, in family lineage, in your human carcass, in your bodily health, in your day-to-day patterns, in your emotional coping strategies, in your relationship styles. Recognizing patterns, taking in data in an observation type style and noticing patterns. Yeah, that is one of the nice things our human brain is for, is pattern recognition, and we're encouraged to use it in these concepts of spiritual and emotional maturity. God gave us a brain, and believe it or not, we're not always meant to disregard it or tell it to be quiet and shush. Yeah, this is a great place to use it. And then from these other three cornerstones comes the fourth one, which is conscious choosing. To me, that has been one of my most empowering parts of a growth journey down spiritual and emotional maturity, which is conscious choosing. Choosing to parent the way I parent, because that is what feels consciously right to me. That is what I consciously wish to do about it right now, rather than that's the way it was taught or done to me. Choosing to walk a career path that feels right to me, not because it's what society expects me to do. Choosing to manage emotions or what's going on inside of me, processing the things in the ways I wish to do so, creative outlets, energetic motion, bodily motion, those things, choosing to do them in the way I wish to do them because I've consciously chosen that that's what works for me, not because of some nervous tic or some instinctive reactive behavior that I don't actually have conscious control of. And so the conscious choosing to me is the absolute empowerment of spiritual and emotional maturity, because once you can start understanding where conscious choosing beguts more emotional and spiritual maturity, which then keeps fueling and reciprocating the cycle, you feel so much more sovereignty and control in your life, even though control isn't actually what you're reaching for. But you feel this sense of, in my conscious choosing, this is truly what I have power and control over, is myself and my choosing. And if nothing else, that's one of the most important things you can be in control of. Yeah. So in all of this, what I'm saying is maturity grows through these integrating experiences, which is conscious choosing. And lastly, what I want to touch on, especially on a day like today when I'm filming this, is that spiritual growth and maturity gets to look messy. When I circle back all the way to the front of where it's not perfection or suppression, even today, my human ego is thrashing around at the fact that I feel shame or judgment or anger or resentment towards myself for my inability to super duper flawlessly, gracefully process everything that's going on right now in life. We all go through seasons of things get to be a little smoother, a little easier, and we all go through seasons where when it rains, it pours. And part of the spiritual journey and part of the growth journey and the integration journey is being able to take that in stride, as well as give yourself radical acceptance for the fact that it gets to look messy. It gets to involve a lot of tears and streaky makeup. It gets to look like some temper tantrums, even though you're a grown-ass adult. It gets to look like needing to lay in bed all day. It gets to look like extra squeezes and hugs and being a little needy from time to time. Or, having a venting session with your friends, things like that, that don't necessarily feel mature, or they don't necessarily get labeled as mature by us humans. But what I want to say to somebody that might be going through a hard time and feeling your own sense of shame or judgment about the way you're handling life, growing, expanding, becoming more spiritually and emotionally mature, is that it doesn't have to look any certain way. Sometimes it looks like crying for 3 days for not really much of a good reason other than everything's really overwhelming, but you're processing and moving through. Sometimes it gets to look like sacred rage. Sometimes it gets to look like a few weeks of doing little to no motion or exercise at all. And sometimes it gets to look like you're on a warpath of energy and motion. And because it's conscious choosing, and here's the thing I want to get to, is because I'm not just unconsciously thrashing around, I'm very aware of this discomfort in my growth and expansion and reaching for the maturity I'm seeking, even in a difficult time or even in a time of reaching for it is a struggle. The conscious choosing is what allows me the grace and the forgiveness and the space to accept that all of it is maturity, regardless of how messy it looks, regardless of how unpolished it looks, which is why it's important sometimes for me to get on and give y'all some voice notes or some videos that are a little raw, are a little teary, are a little choked up, but they're authentic. And it's being real with you about the fact that, today has been a day of tears all day over tough life situations and being a woman and going through the womanly things and just lifing and all of it happening at once, but knowing that I'm doing the best I can and that today is a little messy. And I get to give myself the grace of freedom of judgment of that, freedom of shame or resentment of self from that, just especially because nobody else is. The hilarious part about it is nobody else is giving me a hard time for being a hot mess express today. And so if you're giving yourself a hard time today for being a hot mess express because you don't have it all together, your ducks are not in a row, and it's just stuff everywhere, just overwhelm everywhere. If nobody else is giving you a hard time, stop it. Stop doing it to yourself. Okay? So I'm giving both of us permission to do so. So someone needed to hear that today, that true emotional and spiritual maturity gets to look like, you know, on your knees, feeling like you're going to break down moments. It also gets to feel like being a shining star and example for others. It also gets to feel like every degree in between, and recognizing that it is your conscious choosing, it is your conscious willingness to participate in the process of all of the alchemization of what's going on, all of the continual seeking. You don't even have to feel like you're getting it right, because I sure don't feel like I'm getting it right today. All I knew is that I needed to get down here and record and help somebody through a moment where the integration doesn't feel like you're integrating, feels like you're failing. Yeah, feels like you're not getting it right, like you're letting yourself down or others down. But it right there in you in this moment, hear me please. I'm hoping to give us both some consolation and comfort in the fact that in your effort, in your conscious ability to see that you're efforting to integrate, you're efforting to alchemize, you're efforting to expand, and you're still here, you're still in it. You haven't checked out, you haven't left, you haven't given up. You're doing it. You're doing it. And it gets to look terrible, it gets to look messy, it gets to look teary, it gets to look angry, it gets to look like a hot mess express. And that all still gets to be maturity. Because it is your consciousness, it is your awareness to keep going, to keep choosing, even if it's moment by moment, that tells me, that tells you that you are working on spiritual and emotional maturity. Yeah? So somebody needed to hear that today. It gets to be okay. Gets to be messy, doesn't mean it's not spiritually and emotionally mature. So, but again, this is all the foundation of what I love to talk about, and I love to express rawly and vulnerably that this is what real life is. This is what we all go through every day, and instead of hiding it, I get to get on camera and put it out there for the rest of the world to see of what a Hot Mess Express day kind of gets to look like. Not that I didn't try to clean it up a little before I got on here, but I would love to work with someone if they want to know what that looks like, or if they want to share, or if they want to connect at a time when they're feeling a little raw and needing some encouragement or some extra support in moving through your integration process. So if integration and embodiment work is something that intrigues you, interests you, makes you curious about what that could look like in helping you, please reach out to me, check out my email, leave a comment. I'd love to connect. I'd love to start building a community on this concept of integration and all things that is heading towards your own version of enlightenment. Yeah? So I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope to catch you subscribe, liking my stuff, and connecting with me very soon. Take care.